A lot of people, they know your life story. Guy who started out basically at the bottom rung of Pepsi, worked your way up to be head of Pepsi's North American South Division. Your last role there was head of their, basically their multicultural, I guess if you will, sort of investment business, the idea of investing in black businesses and underserved businesses. And then you retired. Why?
Well, I retired at the end of 22. I wanted to shift really from a long, great career at Pepsico, 30, 35 years, it's 3.5 decades. What a great run, a great company that has a ton of obviously powerful brands, powerful operational capabilities, powerful talent leadership, culture was unbelievable. So, but after 35 years, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to pivot away from just being a go-getter. I was a go-getter for really most of my entire career, and I wanted to shift to something more balanced. I wanted to be not only a go-getter, but also a go-giver. And so I want to have a little bit more purpose in my life. And so the things that I've shifted to now are certainly more purposeful for me. And I keep that balance. So I didn't want to shift completely to being just a go-giver, no go-getter. So now I've found that right balance and that right rhythm in my life now. And so I've been enjoying that since I retired. And it's been a really fun ride. The second chapter or the next act has been just as fun.
But part of that chapter, though, is, I mean, you've made some investments in the restaurant space, basically as a franchisee. Why restaurants?
You know what? I had this affinity for restaurants growing up, for Philadelphia food, cheesesteaks and pretzels. I grew up on those. I lived in D.C. I grew up in D.C., but it was always a treat when I was able to eat a cheesesteak, eat a pretzel. I moved around the country a lot, and I craved those foods. I always craved the Philly cheesesteak when I was living out west. I lived in Phoenix. I lived in Portland. I lived in Denver. And I could never really find a great cheesesteak, a really great soft pretzel, right? So I've always found myself craving those foods. And when I came back in my general management roles at Pepsi and essentially also the multicultural role, I ended up working with a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly one, the brand I own now, Big Dave's Cheesesteaks. And so I supported that brand, in terms of my work. I also found, got to love the business itself, love the owner, love the business itself. So when I retired, we talked, and here I am now in the business, a couple of units open in Orlando, also have a Philadelphia pretzel factory. I just opened. So being a multi-brand franchisee is a fun thing to do. I'm creating jobs. I'm adding economic impact. I've got great relationships within the Orlando community, particularly within the sports realm as well. So these collaborations are really, really powerful to get the brands off the ground and fulfill engagement.
Well, where was I asked that? It seems like a tough business. I mean, selling consumer staples is a tough business, but restaurants has to be even tougher. And I was looking at some of the locations that you've opened up since you got involved, and they do seem to be tethered to sports venues, not standalone restaurants. And I am curious as to what that says about the restaurant model overall. Is it an easier go if you can sort of be tethered to an existing sort of facility of some sort that brings people in?
I think it definitely helps create awareness. I mean, the reason why I got into that is I knew that I was going to be able to have these opportunities with the Kia Center in Orlando Magic. I was going to have these opportunities with Florida Citrus Sports and the Cheez-It Bowl and the Pop-Tart Bowl. I knew I was going to have opportunities with UCF and the University of Central Florida athletic brands. And so going in, I knew that to create awareness, exposure, and help generate traffic, having these collaborations, I think was going to absolutely be a recipe for success to drive it. And it's been building. It's been a really strong start with those concepts, participating in the brand, and having the licensing and the rights to do a lot of collaborations inside the arenas and outside. So it's a great start with that. And I think ultimately having a venue or platform to create awareness and exposure, particularly where a brand is new, I think is really important in the early cycle of that brand existing. I learned a lot of that from my PepsiCo experience.
With regards to expanding the business, I mean, do you try to just do that organically, meaning just reinvesting back in the business? Do you look for outside capital? I mean, how does that work?
I think it's all the above. I think you want to, first and foremost, want to get off to a good start, improve the brand, can drive the value in the marketplace, right? Then that opens up a lot of opportunities. There's certainly been a lot of inquiries around expansion, and I'm certainly looking forward to expansion in the future. We've hit, obviously, this economic cycle has been a challenge with the businesses, but they're stable, they're doing well. I've had virtually no turnover, so I've got a great team, a great staff. We're building great equity amongst the community, and so I look forward to building upon that as we go forward in the future here.
But given your time at PepsiCo, I mean, you know economic cycles, and you know how consumers shift their spending when times get tough. Give me a sense kind of where you think we stand right now, because depending on who you ask, some will say economy is doing great. Others will say the economy is not doing great. I guess it depends on your income level, maybe.
Right. I think it's mixed. I think, for all, I think consumers are being very intentional right now. First of all, they have more choices. They have a lot more information, and they have higher expectations, right? And so while value is still at the center of their decisions mainly, not just from a pricing standpoint, but also from an experience standpoint. Personalization matters, convenience matters, speed matters. All these things go into called the value equation for consumers. So they're being a lot more selective. I did hear a stat the other day that 10% of America's consumers are driving 60% of the economy. And so it really tells you that there is certainly a lot, that the top end is certainly generating the most of what's going on out there. And that's sort of that, other 90% are being very, very selective. Some cases pulling back, but also I think it's more occasion based. I think in some cases you see consumers lean into premium when it really, really matters them personally. And other occasions they lean into value because they're trying to create that balancing act. So I think at the end of the day, being selective, I think earning a consumer's trust and loyalty is so important. That's what I'm trying to do. I want to earn it because I know it's hard to earn, but easy to lose. Mm-hmm. And so once you gain that trust and loyalty and you're able to deliver those experiences that create the value for the consumer, ultimately, you're going to win. And so brands that listen to consumer feedback, I think, is going to be the most important recipe for being successful going forward.
Is it harder for the bigger brands to do that? I mean, I think back, I know you're not with PepsiCo anymore, but I mean, just a few quarters ago, they kind of ran into that issue where, this years they're just using their brand equity and more importantly, raising prices to sort of maintain that growth. That kind of hit a wall. Right. And the executives, they were pretty candid about it on the conference calls, basically saying that, maybe they need to compete a little bit more on value and understand where the consumer is. And I just wonder, when you have a company that size, like how quickly can you make that shift?
Your base is so, tied to a lot of the frequency is tied to your loyals. And right, so in any case where you upset that apple cart a little bit in terms of pricing or value, you're obviously going to feel that, right? And then you have this whole dynamic where you have new consumers that are coming in, particularly your younger groups, right, who may not adapt to the same drinking or frequency patterns that your base does, right? So you've got a little bit, bigger companies have a little bit of different challenge in that regard of how do I maintain my lows and the frequency I was getting in my lows, especially as they age and move into different categories. The Pepsi benefits from having a plethora of categories. As consumers change, they can fall into some of those newer categories that might be more health-oriented, might be more functionally oriented. So they enjoy that. Other companies may not enjoy that. But nevertheless, when you start to move the value equation up and start to move price up in ways that affects dynamics and purchase intent in a very highly elastic category, you're going to feel the impact of that. So I think you've got to always stay close. The consumer was always my number one focus, the consumer, because they really drive every decision that really happens beyond that in your company. And so if you move out of value, you're going to expect to see some volume pressure and some financial pressure with that. So staying in a comfortable value zone that rewards not only them from a pricing standpoint, but again, their experience, the quality, the variety, the personalization, things they enjoy, you're going to reap those benefits for a long-term basis.
And so can you do that, like in terms of having dual tracks? So I mean, let's stick with Dave's cheesesteaks. I know you guys recently had introduced a value meal. Can you sort of keep the core menu that maybe might be priced a little bit higher and then create sort of, is it a new product or is it just kind of taking the same products and creating sort of a value combo?
I think it's certainly the and, not the or. I think you have to sort of maintain your core, because your core who loves that, 9-inch and 18-inch, you don't want to disrupt that apple cart. They love those sizes. They love those for, their frequency that they enjoy. But you also now, if you're thinking about people who are less frequent, who really tap in when they have the money, creating value now will opportunity for more frequency. And so we've created value programs that bring people into the business at a different serving size menu, a different price point, certainly for lunch, for all day parts for that matter. But we're also watching third party. What happens with DoorDash and Uber is very, very different. So you do want to create a platform that can appeal to a broader set of users, especially in this environment where everybody's being very, very selective. But you don't want to certainly alienate your core. You also don't want to bring on new users. So it's the and, not the or is what I say. Yeah. People that pivot to just one or the other, you certainly probably may see some consequences of that. We try to make sure we can adequately meet the needs of all consumers, given where they're coming from and what they enjoy the most out of our experience.
I do have to ask you about your last role at PepsiCo as head of that multicultural investment business. Obviously, that was kind of born in the aftermath of the George Floyd murders and the intentional move by a lot of companies to find ways to sort of embrace and if not invest directly in the Black community and other underserved communities. Was your departure in any way a reflection on maybe that commitment waning?
No, not at all. I think the company, has a long legacy and history of investing in those spaces. If you think about the demographic shifts that are occurring, you want to capture that. Brands want to capture that. From a talent pool standpoint, you want to capture that. So there's no reason to turn away from that at all. Certainly resources get deployed a little bit differently in intention. I was asked to stand that up because, quite frankly, the work that I was doing as an operator when I was in the South and when I was actually ahead of the North America footprint, the best practices that we were putting in place to invest in those communities, to invest in those consumer groups, to really keep the holistic greater good at front and center was the reason why our business results were really, really strong. So the company said, hey, look, can you take these best practices that you're doing on a geographic level and scale these across the enterprise? We want to make sure everybody is participating in the ability to reach all the consumer groups that are out there to grow our business. Because this is always about the business case. If you're not growing revenue and profit, there's no need to talk about investing in these other activities. But I was able to demonstrate you can do both. You can actually do well from a performance perspective. You also can do good from a purpose perspective, and both can coexist and drive the greatest results possible. And that's exactly what I did. And that's the intention of setting up that business unit, was to do that across scale, across the entire organization.
It makes a lot of sense, and it certainly made a lot of sense in 2020, 2021,
Absolutely.
2022, and 2026. Can an executive walk into the CEO's office and make that same pitch given the political climate?
I think you're going to have to do it differently. I think you're going to have to position it certainly a lot differently. You still have to obviously keep the greater good in mind, but being surgical in places that are going to absolutely drive incremental lifts in your business and not erode your core, because quite frankly, a lot of the demographic changes in the company are a big part of the growth that the company is a lot of companies are realizing. So you're not going to want to disrupt that. So staying true to growing the business there, but also investing in their communities in the same manner, or certainly in a manner that's consistent with what those consumers believe to be a company they want to stay loyal in. You have to be very mindful of that, because you have to be careful about that. But I think you have to sort of reimagine how you do it. You have to rebrand it. You can't live off of legacy programs anymore. I think the ones that are most creative and the most collaborative and thinking about the collective, I think are going to be the ones that win ultimately. And I don't know why CEOs would not get behind that. It would totally make sense to support those individual leaders that can still convey that message, but do it in a broad-based sense that nobody's left behind.
Yeah. Given the current political climate, there has been a lot of discussion about black spaces, if you will, whether where we're sitting right now here on Inkwell Beach or at the historically black colleges and universities. You are an alum of Hampton, you're a trustee at Hampton. Has that sort of universe sort of risen in importance given where we are right now?
I think so. I think it's a recognition that, look, the HBCUs are America's talent engine and have been for a long, long time. The graduates that come from these schools are highly resilient, highly adaptable, very intellectually curious, and are great leaders for the future. And so the ability for that now for them to stand out even more now than ever shows companies that investing in an HBCU graduate is going to deliver a very, very high ROI in your corporation. The sociability index, just the metrics that are coming out of students who go through the HBCU experience and step into the real world are, quite frankly, very prepared, extremely prepared to do the job and deliver great results, build world-class relationships, and deliver the type of reputation that makes them feel proud is who they are. Bringing their whole self to work, bringing their whole self to the community, being that person, and when they step into that campus, being fundamentally the same person they are, but now growing with the benefit of having companies now investing in them to drive the greatest outcomes for the future. So investing in HBCUs now is more important than ever. The schools are obviously seeing enrollment, I think, on the rise. We're certainly seeing that at Hampton. And so I think there's momentum that's back now in the HBCUs coming off of COVID. And I think having events and having fundraising, having things that continue to facilitate the ability for students to go there, achieve there, and grow in the way they grow, to provide for society holistically, I think is a wonderful thing. And so I think you're going to see more and more great stories come out of HBCUs over time.
Well, how do you improve and, more importantly, sustain the increase in financial stability of these universities? I mean, you are also head of the finance committee there. And when we talk about the endowments that we see for the HBCUs, obviously a fraction of what you would see for some of the non-HBC universities. How do you sort of seize on these types of moments to create a better foundation to make sure that that money is going to be there for students 20, 50 years down the road?
Well, you see a lot of that here. And the fundraising is a extremely critical component, not only from generating more of the alumni participation. That alumni participation for us is on the rise, and I imagine on the rise for other institutions, but you also have to generate outside funding, because quite frankly, it's going to be the recipe that, one, keeps the institution on solid ground, two, keeps expanding opportunities for students as they graduate, and then 3, set up the generations for the future, right? So we're maniacally focused on that fundraising campaign, bringing our alumni closer, bringing higher participation from the alumni, but also doing outside events, because there are a lot of business people, there are a lot of just very generous people who want to participate, knowing the ROI is very high on these students when they graduate. And so cultivating an environment where you can bring everybody to the table. There's events that we've hosted here that brings other people to the table, not just alumni, but outsiders to the table. It shows the power of a Hampton University and other great HBCUs that says, hey, you want to spend dollars and you want to really be generous and give back and be a go-giver and really invest in students for the future, these are the places to invest in. So that effort is being ramped up across, I imagine, all campuses. Certainly our campus, our president is doing a tremendous job. Our board is doing a tremendous job. We want to continue that momentum and effort. And I imagine other schools are adopting the same formula and contributing that way. So I feel like the surge of HBCUs is back on track. I think you're going to see a lot more strength out of that. The alumni participation, the alumni significance is very, very relevant in today's world. And so there are a lot of people who, you can see it, you can be it. And a lot of people see the success of the alumni that's paved the way before them. And now it's their turn to get in the queue to do the same thing, if not create a level of experience for that.
Well, you obviously are really emblematic of that. I mean, you were basically recruited by PepsiCo off of the Hampton campus. Well, I mean, what is the pipeline so the kids coming in today and when they graduate, what exactly is that pipeline? Is it going to be a major company coming to the campus and recruiting them? Is it going to be more entrepreneurship? I mean, what is the future like for that career pipeline?
I think it's going to be certainly more diverse. It's going to be a little bit more of a hybrid. I mean, I think when I was in school, it was all about corporate America, right? That was the landing spot and certainly the highest level of recruitment. I think now schools have to get a little bit creative, because all kids now, and I'm seeing it, want to move into entrepreneurship. They want to get into a little bit earlier. They're demonstrating on campus. There's programs that I was part of this year that focused on giving money. We created Shark Tank-like programs for students who are running hair salons, who are running construction type of companies on small scale, different venues. And you're amazed at, wow, the creativity now that exists at the student level. So I think schools are going to have to be a little bit more creative at how they open up more doors for students to become entrepreneurs as they graduate, because they're already in the space now, while still cultivating that climate where the big companies are coming down recruiting. Some students may realize that they may need to go to a big company and learn a skill set and get a skill set for a few years before they go out on their own. That might be also a desired path. But I think there's a lot more options now for students than there were before. And I think, again, the school has to cultivate that environment. The alumni have to cultivate an environment. And I think businesses, large and small, also need to cultivate an environment for students who are very different, who I think are sharper, who are more intellectually curious, who are more adaptable and flexible in a very complicated, complex world they're going into. So we need to be ready for them. We need to prepare them and embrace them for what they bring, because they bring definitely a different dynamic that I think is going to really excite our society as we go forward. So it'll be very different.